Welcome back to RBR, guys, and the new GLC has finally got its full AMG version in this, the brand new GLC 63S E Performance. And despite looking absolutely epic and muscular and having equally impressive figures on paper of 680 brake horsepower, it's already a car that most people are not that happy about. Now, AMG customers today are a confused, frustrated, sometimes bitter bunch, and the car that you can blame for that is this, the brand new C63S E Performance. It's a car that ditched an amazing and characterful V8 and replaced it with a 4-cylinder in the front and an electric engine in the rear, essentially ditching half of its identity and emotion. So when this GLC follows suit with the same type of engine layout, you can kind of understand the apprehension that AMG fans have. I myself concluded that C63, although a really impressive performance car in terms of dynamics and power, just didn't deserve the name C63. So this GLC 63S has an uphill battle, which ironically might be a bit easier for an SUV. So today I'm going to show you every single detail of this car, both in terms of aesthetics and what lies under the skin. I'll show you the GLC 43, that might be a better alternative for many buyers. I'll also show you the coupe, and then finally we will go for a first drive and see, is this really as soulless as we are expecting it to be, or does this whole thing somehow work better in an SUV format? Let's find out today with the new GLC 63S. So guys, today's episode of RBR is sponsored by returning sponsor, The Ridge, the company that redefined our expectations of the wallet. And they're back with an absolutely awesome new addition, which is the first ever pure leather Ridge wallet. Now I'm gonna open these up. Let's see what the leather ones are like versus the standard one. So guys, I've got two versions of the Ridge leather wallet here. One is the brown leather version, which is gorgeous, and the other is midnight black. Let's get this open. Oh, wow. That is lovely, look at that. And this has had 18 months of development. It's the same great design as our classic. There's my awesome forged carbon with the red details, which was such an amazing version that they did. But this brown leather, this has been designed so it patinas as well, really well. You can replace the screws, lifetime warranty, just like your other Ridge products. You can fit your cash in here. And of course, this has the same great RFID blocking technology to protect your cards from wireless thieves. Pop in my cards into the leather one as well. Doesn't bulge out of your pocket like a standard wallet either. So guys, that's the new Ridge leather wallet. I can't wait to see what it looks like when it ages. It's got that great 99-day test drive is all that you can take. And the same lifetime warranty, because Ridge are so confident about their products. Use the link ridge.com/RBR, or my code RBR. You'll get 10% off your order. It's the perfect gift for yourself or someone that you care for because it is long lasting and it's going to be used every day. So a huge thanks to Ridge. Thank you guys for supporting our regular sponsors as well. Now let's get back to the episode. So the new GLC is a hugely attractive looking car in my opinion. Although it shares a lot with C-Class, I think it's just a million times better looking than the new C-Class in its standard form as well. You've got the painted arches, lots of muscle. It's just a really nice looking car, both on the front with that different looking grille and light arrangement, and on the rear for the same reasons. And then it also added things like rear wheel steering, it added more luxury and refinement and space on the inside, better hybrid. It's just a really good start. And that's great because the AMG can use all the help it can get, mainly because of how popular and how exciting the previous version was. It was basically a C63 on stilts with that 510 horsepower hunk of a V8 engine that we all loved so much, paired to the really clever 4MATIC Plus system. And not only did it look the part and perform the part, it also proved it on the Nürburgring, being essentially the fastest SUV for almost all of its life, sometimes back and forth with the Stelvio Quadrifoglio, but in the end beating it with the facelift. This was a hugely, hugely impressive car that really left its mark on all of us. So our new GLC 63S with the E-Performance powertrain has really got an uphill battle. Now the good thing is the car starts things off on the right foot by having a really aggressive design. It's easily as aggressive, if not more so than the previous version. You got a lot of nice bulk on the front and a lot of nice bulk on the rear, amazing looking wheels as well. And you know the cool thing? The GLC 43 from that angle looks identical to the 63. And I think this is a new trend that they're starting that I think we may see now in the CLE 53 and 63, where they're sharing the same body despite the power drain you're going for, and the only difference is going to be on the rear with your pipes. Now I thought we would start off, let's have a look at this, which is pretty much the most aggressive body style you can get, which is a nice Magno paint in this new high-tech silver Magno with the aerodynamic package. So come closer, let's have a look at this, and then I'll show you a few other specs that you can go for. Now that is a good looking car. Ignore the powertrain and everything for a moment. That is just a really, really good looking mid-size performance SUV. I think it's way better looking than the X3M and the X4M. I can't think of a rival that actually looks better than it. Maybe Stelvio, but that's old hat now. Yeah, I really, really like it. And a lot of this is just standard GLC body. Like the bonnet is not like AMG specific. It's already got those power domes. Most of the body is already muscular. You know, you've got the painted arches now in this generation of GLC. It's a good looking car. But of course, then the AMG adds more. When we come around the front and you kind of see the bulk that is added, and you'll see this on the rear as well, you get a lot of bulk added with the AMG specific lower bumper. It's nice. You don't have your air intakes here anymore. Your radiator's back there, so all the air flows through our front here for aerodynamics. These are your air curtains, so they take air through the side, they cool your brakes, etc. That's their function, but they look great. The aerodynamic package adds larger versions of these, and this flick around the side, this lower lip which is larger, which I think looks quite nice. I always like the aerodynamic package in these cars, and the GLC SUV looks good with it. Now, of course, you've got the AMG Panamericana style grille here, which is the first time I think that we've had it linked to a light. But I think it looks good. It's got a nice kind of industrialist plastic border around it, which I don't think bad. I think it suits the character of an AMG rather than having like gloss black or something. So that looks good. And of course, beautiful, the Falterbach badge, as you see on every AMG now. So the front end is really nice. It's really nice. One thing I really, really like on the side are these new side sills. They look like a sword out of an anime or something. Like really, really aggressive looking. Probably one of the prettiest side sills they've ever done. It kind of cuts in the middle and then enlarges on each side of it. That's a really nice look. And perhaps even better than that are the new wheels. The wheels, check these babies out. They're absolutely gorgeous. New AMG multi-spokes. We've got the nice center lock in the middle with the AMG logo. That's kind of grown on me, but I love this Y-spoke look with the cuts in the middle. It looks great in silver, looks great in black. And then finally, of course, this is an E-performance car. We have a charging port. At the very least, it's not a butt plug. Hi Throttle House, you were absolutely right. At least it's not a butt plug in the rear, at least on the side of the car. So we can like that aspect of the GLC. Now, let's have a look at the rear as well. The rear is really nice as well. Like I said, you get a lot of bulk, particularly like when you add the AMG lower diffuser and the bumper, like it extends the car like lower, particularly when you got aero package. Like you can see on aero, you get this extra kind of part of the diffuser at the bottom here, which frames that really nicely. The black plastic helps break up and increase kind of that aggression a little bit. Aero package gives you these flicks on the side as well, which are quite nice. And I absolutely love this massive large spoiler that they've done on the top. That's really, really nice. And it gives the SUV then kind of a bit of aggression that it didn't have previously in the last generation, which is nice. And just generally speaking in terms of GLC, I love that rear light bar now. I wasn't sure whether it looked good in a lighter car, but that looks nice. This is obviously just black plastic and that's just your light, but it looks good. As in typical E-performance fashion, you've got the red around your logos here for GLC and then the red S as well. It's ironic because it's kind of less emotional, but it's got a bit more red in it. Weird. But no, overall, like really nice. That rear 3/4 from over there, I think it looks proper muscular. So that's an impressive looking car. Now you can go for some different specs altogether. The two I want to show you are, first of all, Patagonia Red, which doesn't have the aerodynamic package, but it has the carbon package and night package on the outside. This looks really nice, again with the same wheels. Slightly classier looking perhaps, without the aerodynamic package. So the Patagonia car looks great. You don't need Aeropack for this car to look nice and aggressive. The other one is if you don't take any of those trim packages at all, and the standard one gives you these aluminium trims, as you see here on the Spectral Blue car, which again, they actually look quite nice because they've got some nice design both on the front bit and on our side sills. The rear is a bit simpler, but it still looks a nice and classy car. Then you can see on our blue car, we've got some different wheels, which are quite nice as well. These are like we've seen on the EQ AMGs, but a lot deeper in the middle. And I think they actually really suit this GLC quite a bit. Then of course, remember that you can also get this car in a coupe version. And that's for both 63 and for 43. And the coupe, once again, looking amazing. Is it the pick of the bunch as it was last time in terms of design? It might be, but I think they're a lot closer this time than they were before. I think the SUV really does look quite good. Now, when you compare this car directly to the standard car, you can see that you get a lot of bang for buck. It is absolutely looking like a top level AMG. I think it looks as good, if not better, than the previous generation. So we're off to a good start as far as design goes. Right guys, now let's address the elephant in the room here, okay? And that is of course the engine and the powertrain. If you think of your original GLC 63 as a McDonald's cheeseburger, you must think of the GLC 63 SE Performance as the McPlant, okay? Run with me on this. It looks the same, it tastes kind of similar, but at the end of the day, it don't matter how much sauce or pickles you slap on that thing, it's not the original thing. And I think at some kind of core level, that's what bothers AMG customers. They're looking for that same taste, and they ain't getting it in these newer hybrid cars. Although I will say this, I think versus the C63 that was so infamous for having the whole V8 structure, I don't think it's as much of a problem for a daily SUV. Okay, so let's give this a chance. Let's first talk about what lies under the skin of this car. First of all, we have the engine. So let's talk about the combustion engine first. 476 brake horsepower from a 4-cylinder is insane. This 4-cylinder is the M139L that started life in the A45 and has been hugely upgraded in these newer cars. We've got an E-turbo from the AMG 1 that is a larger unit than you'd find in the C43 or the GLC 43. And altogether, like I said, 476 brake horsepower, that is hugely impressive. That then links to the electric engine, which all sits at the rear. This is Mercedes-AMG's EDU, or electric drive unit. Very clever thing again, we've got the electric motor, we've got our slippy diff in there, and we have the 2-speed gearbox as you'd find in EVs as well. This sits underneath our 6 kilowatt AMG Performance battery. Again, a hugely impressive unit, all coming from F1. It's got these singular battery cells that are individually cooled, and they maintain the same temperature all the time. So no matter what you're doing, you get that full performance at peak when you need it. So we've got 476 coming from our combustion engine, and then from our electric engine, you either get 100 horsepower all the time, or at peak for 10 seconds, a whole 200 horsepower more. That gives this car a total output of 680 brake horsepower, 1,020 Newton meters of torque, and a claimed 0 to 60 of 3.5 seconds. And although I've bemoaned in the past that you only get the peak output sometimes, so is the power to weight ratio really that accurate all the time? Is it more than the old car? Having driven these cars, you kind of understand that you don't need the full burst of power all the time. You only need it in certain situations. So I think it is fair to say that it is 680 when it counts most of the time. Now that whole system adds about 300 kg to your standard car, which is quite a bit. But unlike the C63, the GLC 63S pulls a clever little trick that we found in the S63 to help manage the weight and make it even more dynamic, and that is an electrical anti-roll stabilization system that links to your 400 volt system that this car is based on. And this is really clever. It comes in 2 parts, and it has an electric actuator in the middle. So that actuator is able to separate those parts or join them together depending on how you're driving, and essentially to make it either more comfortable or more dynamic and really handle the weight and the movement of the car so much better. Of course, you already have AMG's active ride control suspension with active dampers already, you know, it does the whole comfort sport, etc. thing. But this extra layer on top should make this car really quite agile on the move. So that's great. Of course, we have AMG's specific steering on here. You've got your standard steel brakes today, but you can also get the carbon ceramic versions, which look quite fantastic. More important than all that is the gearbox that links to the engine, which is a 9-speed multi-clutch gearbox, which is great. It's not a torque converter, and it all goes to the fantastic 4MATIC Plus system, which can send 100% of power to the rear or up to 50% to the front. So very clever. Now there is a model that sits underneath this as well, as I said, and that is the GLC 43, which pretty much looks identical if it wasn't just for the rear pipes being round and a bit of the rear diffuser. Now, what does this car have in terms of powertrain? It's got everything that I just mentioned to you on the 63, minus that anti-roll stabilization system, but it probably doesn't need it because unlike the 2.3 tons of our 63, the 43 only weighs around 2 tons, so we're 300 kg lighter. So I don't think you're really going to need that aspect. Apart from that, we actually have the same engine, albeit with a smaller E-turbo, but still an E-turbo. And we've got a belt starter generator that gives a tiny bit of horsepower. Altogether, we have 421 brake horsepower, 500 Newton meters, and a 0 to 60 of around about 4.7 seconds. So it's still a pretty good performance SUV. We've got all of the looks, all of the benefits of the active ride control, and all the other nice AMG stuff, the struts, etc., as we find in the 63 as well. So we're not that hindered by going to the lower model, which is probably why they eventually decided to give it the same type of body. The 4MATIC though is slightly less clever. In this we have the old style of 4MATIC where it's 31 to the front and 69 to the rear. So it's not as clever as our 4MATIC Plus variant, but still for a daily car it's pretty good. And of course, as I said before, available as a coupe as well. So essentially that is your new GLC AMG. We're going to have a quick look inside now before we go out, and I'll show you then what it can do on the road as a first drive. It's an interesting one. I've driven it already. I have some opinions and I want to see what you guys think of them. Now guys, before we hop in the GLC 63S, because this is a hybrid, we know that we have that battery in the boot, right? So as promised, I want to show you what the boot space is like. So we've got two bags here that are the max size for cabin safe, you know, the rolly type ones. So they fit in. We've got our two backpacks as well. Of course, you've got the bump of the battery area here. There is a tiny bit of storage space under here where you've got like your tire pressure thing and a couple of other things in here. But generally, that's not too bad for a hybrid. We saw the exact same setup in the Porsche Cayenne as well, which was a hybrid. And you've got a lot of space here for the rest of your luggage, even with this stuff in. You can split fold the seats, as you can see here, and you've got, of course, your load cover on top here. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good for a full-on hybrid with a big battery. Now, getting inside the car, let me show you the interior, which is actually quite lovely. We've got a very AMG spec interior in this particular car, which is the other reason I wanted to choose it, because I love Magno Silver and I love this interior. This is the AMG Black Nappa interior with the lovely yellow details all around it, and these are your new AMG bucket seats that only some AMGs have benefited from. Even the new GT doesn't have it, and they're kind of a bit reminiscent of the BMW carbon seats in the sense that you've got, you've got those tickle holes on the sides, which actually look really cool, especially when they're nicely highlighted with the colour here. And then all of the usual AMG perforation. You've got that lovely bit as we used to have on our other seats, the Recaro ones. AMG crest on top here, and just really nicely stitched. So I'm a big fan of these, and they've been really supportive when doing the more dynamic stuff, as you'll see in a minute when we go for a drive. In the back, loads of space. Lots and lots of space. No pan roof in this one, which is a shame, so it's a bit dark in the interior. But in terms of actual legroom, you can see how the rear passengers have benefited the most from the GLC growing in this generation. It's a nice, large and roomy interior in the rear. And again, the stitching of the rear seats matches the front, which is nice. I would have liked some yellow belts. I think that would have really finished it off, but it looks good. It looks good. Now, let's hop in the front. And as we jump in, I do like that. I know I say it in every review, but I genuinely do like the AMG startup screen. So, as expected, the interior is pretty much the same as you find in the C63, because the GLC, as you know, is basically a SUV C-Class. But that doesn't mean it's not nice. So you saw the seats, AMG Performance seats, the new ones are absolutely lovely. You of course have the AMG steering wheel with your drive select units, which are great. As I've shown you guys in other videos, not to be exhaustive, but you can now customize these the way you want them to be. And what I mean by that is you go into our AMG drive modes here and you press the little pencil button, and then you can move these around to whatever order you want. So for example, if you care more about race and less about electric, put that there, remove before race almost if you like, and boom, electric is your first one. Similarly, if we look at the settings select on this side, you do the same thing. You press the pencil button and you can add whatever you like out of this massive list here. And there's lots of things. So 360 camera, Parktronic, 3D view, the drag race, track pace stuff that we will be using in a minute, charging, loads of stuff. And you can again set these to what you want. So nice configurability for the AMG customer. Alongside that, of course, you've got the AMG Performance screens. These I will show you in detail as we're driving. The only one here that I'm going to show you for now is the one that I really like, which is the, ooh, they've done a new intro screen for it. Very nice. That is the IWC screen, so it does work. It's like a timer, as you would expect of a chronograph, which matches an IWC nut quite nicely. But yeah, I like that. The others I will show you when driving, because they're very, very useful for a hybrid car, because they give you tons of information in what is quite, you know, a complicated car. Of course, the car gets all the usual stuff that you usually find in Mercedes-Benz, so all your, you know, multicolored ambient lighting, as you'd see on these silly viral Mercedes pages, you know, pink, purple, all that bollocks that nobody really cares about. And then you've got the updated MBUX system, where you can have the main page either as the navigation or this classic one, which I prefer. Your screen in front, very, very configurable as always. So this is the Super Sport display, which comes with, in the hybrid cars at least, an absolute ton of temperatures. As you can see, we've got battery, electric motor, oil temperatures, you know, your gearbox temperature, etc. Tons of information for the driver. And again, you can change that to whatever you want. So your driving modes, you can do your geometry, just your mileage, etc., etc. All of that configurable, even your full screen maps. But that's not the only one you get. You get track pace screen as well, which is ideal for if you'd want to track this car, which I can't imagine why you would. You've got sport display, which is still available, which changes the color on this side as well. And then the classic, which I quite like classic. Classic is nice. But you also have understated, which is a very nice one that matches your ambient lighting and changes the entire ambience of the car via the ambient lighting color as well. So quite smart, quite smart. But in AMGs, I generally do prefer Super Sport because it's unique and specific to these cars. You'll notice you've got that massive carbon fiber trim going along the entirety of the dash, which is lovely. It's a shame that this also wasn't carbon. It's just that horrible piano black. I would have preferred if it was like a wood or anything else that's a bit more cleanable, even this aluminium finish. You do have your cup holders in there, a couple of USB-Cs as well, wireless charging mat, and more storage in here with even more USB-Cs. So lots of storage available, which is nice. Being a hybrid, there's a number of driving modes in this car, like a whole ton of them. You can see when we go into the AMG screen here, there's about 8 different modes that range from your slippery mode to your individual mode that you can change all of these to whatever you want them to be. Then you've got battery hold, which is a unique one just for these. And then on battery hold, it's got a unique, nice little icon here as well. As you know, we've moved race to after that, but that usually comes later. Then you've got pure electric mode that will drive just using the electric engine, and then the usual of Comfort Sport and Sport Plus. So tons of modes to choose from, which is one of the benefits of these hybrids. You've got a lot of choice in terms of how you want to drive these cars. Now, when you start the car up normally, it will always start up in electric mode. So let me show you that first. And that does the typical EQ sound of starting up. And then if you want to go into a combustion mode, you got to move this way into Sport Plus or something. Sadly, one thing that really annoyed me is that previously in these cars, you could do a motion start, which was holding the paddle, then regardless if it's a hybrid, it would start in the combustion mode. It doesn't do that anymore. It does not do a motion start. I'm going to go and ask someone if they deleted it from the system, which is really annoying because that was nice. Now, if you want to start in a petrol mode, you kind of have to go into a petrol mode first and then start the vehicle, and still the motion start doesn't work. So that's that. More importantly, let's see on a first drive what this is like versus the other hybrid AMGs we've driven. Right guys, we're going to start in what I would start normally in a car like this if I was owning it. Leaving in the morning, I would do it in electric mode because you got the use of it. I mean, why would you not use it? So we're going into electric. We'll put the electric sound on as well, as you can normally with your exhaust. Good. And here we go. And just like the EQ cars, I'm sure you guys can hear that, it's the typical electric AMG sound. It's so strange having that. I actually really like this aspect of these cars. I liked in the GT63 as well. You just don't have much range. So at the moment I'm on 3/4 of battery power and I've got 8 kilometers of range. Range is not what this is about. So we're going to go back into comfort mode now. You can hear the engine come alive. It's quite present actually within the interior. But what's interesting about comfort mode is you kind of get both sounds. You get a bit of the electric sound and a bit of the combustion sound. There you hear the electric and then the combustion. That's what I was talking about. It's quite cool. I like that aspect. It's such a clever system, really, to be able to marry those two technologies so flawlessly. But of course, there's only a certain amount that we care about that as AMG customers, right? We care more about the emotional aspect, how the thing drives, what the performance is like, which is why we've got these incredible roads here in Spain to test this car on. Not bad. That's comfort mode, mind you. Sounds pretty decent. Right, now we'll come back to comfort mode later. I want to go into Sport Plus. Got a few pops and bangs coming. Oh, quite loud actually. That's louder than what we had in C63, that's for sure. Bit reminiscent of A35, which I quite enjoyed. Oh, not bad. So you can play the exhaust quite a bit, especially with the gears. Downshifting too as well, and it's consistent and it's a nice volume. I'm quite happy with that because when I drive one of these cars fast, I want there to be an emotional reason for me to drive fast as well, not just the aspect of speed and dynamics. So I think they've improved a little bit on that. Is it still like 100 K's worth of emotion? Probably not. But I genuinely think that we're all a little bit less bothered about this hybrid powertrain in a car like the GLC than versus a super saloon. Right guys, we have to now see what this does on launch control. 680 brake, we saw how amazing the C63 was. Let's see what this can do on a launch start. Oh, sounds good. Whoa. Bloody hell. Such immediate traction. Let's see what we got. So 3.6 seconds, again, extremely impressive. That's really quick for this size of SUV, and of course quicker than the predecessor as well. As we said, power to weight ratio kind of makes it that it's not that much more powerful in reality than the last one, but obviously very quick. Your gearbox is a 9-speed multi-clutch, and as we found in other cars, you know, versus torque converters, it's really quite snappy, which is nice. There's a slight delay on upshift, I think, which is a bit frustrating, and sometimes on downshift. I would expect a multi-clutch to be quicker than that. But it's by no means hindersome. It's just quite like a torque converter, which I'm not used to with this gearbox at AMG's. But the benefit of using the manual mode is you can rev it out a bit more and really control the pops and bangs properly right at the top of the rev limiter. And that's nice, then you get the really nice and loud ones. Anyway, onto dynamics, and it's 2.3-ish tons this, which is actually quite decent. I mean, I recently drove the Cayenne E turbo hybrid, and that was around about 2.5 tons. So, you know, it's a bit lighter than that, more like a normal Cayenne. And it's an easy, manageable weight for a modern sports car maker to kind of deal with effectively. But yes, it is 200 kg-ish heavier than the predecessor, which of course was such an amazing car and held the Nürburgring record for the fastest SUV for the longest time. This is dynamically also very proficient. The rear wheel steer is fantastic. The anti-roll stabilization just really levels out the car brilliantly. Not just with when you're doing exaggerating turnings, but kind of when you're driving straight as well. And as we found with S63, it made that massive car just feel so much smaller and lighter than it was. And it's much of the same here. This is really, really quite dynamic. Yes, you absolutely start to feel the weight at some point when you're really speeding into a corner. You really got to pile on the brakes hard, especially compared to the predecessor, but look how this car is doing this. I mean, I should be terrified, right, driving this car like this in these small, narrow roads, but it's absolutely handling it with such poise. Bit of tie squeal there. So much grip out the corner. Bloody hell, this is quick. I think this would give the V8 predecessor a really good chase along these roads. It is interesting though, isn't it, that they haven't decided to do a Nürburgring lap of this. Is that because it's not as capable as the predecessor in that regard? Or maybe that's not their focus anymore, which is weird for a sports car maker because that's what they have been historically. I know they keep going on about performance, luxury and all that, but they are plus a sports car maker like Porsche. I don't know, I can't answer that, but what I can tell you is this is bloody dynamic, and they've really done a fantastic job hiding the weight of this thing. One topic that always comes up is the battery. What if it drains? You're going to lose all the power, etc. You guys have seen how I've driven on this review, and that battery level has not moved at all. So you can see the recuperation levels, particularly when you're driving fast, it's maintaining the battery power, still giving us that power at peak of 680 brake with 1020 Newton meters, which is incredible. But while maintaining that battery level, so you always have the power available. It's not like you're going to lose battery just because you're driving really fast and then not have the full horsepower that you want. Then of course the other really useful thing about that element of regen, etc., is we can tap the button here and choose our level of regeneration. So I've just gone to level 2 now, where the car begins to recoup a little bit more when you come off the throttle, which is great because you're charging the battery even more. Or you can go to the third stage where it's almost like this one pedal driving like you have in EVs. So I don't need to touch the brake, the car will begin to brake itself, regen to the battery. It's good you've got the option of that, and I think you'll be using that a lot more in a car like the GLC 63 versus the C63. Heading back then into comfort mode with our sound on. Very comfortable car. Anti-roll stabilization, like I said, not just about dynamics, it's about straight roads, it's about reacting to the road and the terrain on the fly. So of course you've got your adaptive dampers anyways, you do another AMG, so all of it helps. Of course it's a really comfortable car, as you would expect because of that. Lots of breadth of ability on the comfort side as well. And a really, really responsive engine, be it in comfort or otherwise, obviously, because you've got that electric turbocharger that is instant in terms of giving you power before the gases spool up, and then you've got the entirety of that P3 hybrid system just giving you instant EV-like power. It's quite a progressive power delivery as well. I found the V8 version to be a little more frantic, whereas even in Sport Plus in this, it's a bit more progressive, it's a bit more normal combustion car, which I like and I appreciate. But yeah, I'd be happy to plod around in comfort mode, or to be honest, even in electric mode. We've gained a little bit of charge since we changed the recuperation level. I've only got 6 kilometers, which annoys me, you know, that really does annoy me. You know, I look at rivals like the Cayenne I just tested with bloody 90 kilometers worth of range, which I get, okay, it's a different concept. AMG aren't trying to aim for, you know, this is a part EV, but maybe they should, because that would add a whole nother layer to this car. I do wonder how much of this emotion that we're getting in the 63 will survive in the 43 version with basically a very similar engine setup minus all the hybrid stuff. Because as we found in C63 versus the C43, the C43 I actually prefer as a car. It's a bit lighter, very similar in dynamics. In GLC it's going to be a bit different because I don't think you get the option of the active roll stabilization, but it can't be a million miles off, and plus it's going to be a lighter car, so you probably need that a lot less than you would need it with the 63. I'm actually quite sad that we didn't get to test that alongside this, because it might have been the pick of the bunch. I suspect, like the US C63, in America and the Middle East, this car is going to sound so much better. We've seen the Nürburgring videos where the bangs on upshift, etc., are really loud, like the old A45 series. I mean, this is not bad with the, you know, the little pops and bangs that I've showed you guys. It's nowhere near the old V8, it's nowhere near the S63. It's in a different universe compared to the SL. All in all, I really like this car actually. I think it's a lot more convincing to me as a car to live with than the C63 ever was. It makes more sense to me in an SUV. The anti-roll stabilization helps make this car really, really familiar and similar to the predecessor as well. And you've got some decent louder pops and bangs than I think you had in the C63 as well, which is nice. When you want a bit of emotion, it's there. My only question mark over the whole thing is, what will the GLC 43 be like? Same body, same engine, minus the hybrid stuff. Yes, we haven't got anti-roll, but the car's lighter. That could be really, really compelling, and I'm really excited to drive it. Until then, I've actually really enjoyed this car, okay? I would be quite happy to own it if it comes in at the right price. Yes, it's not a V8, but I'm not as bothered as I was with the C63. Would I prefer an inline 6 or something like that? Of course I would. If you want a really powerful SUV that's a hybrid, for the benefits that come along with that, then I would actually happily recommend this, where I wasn't really recommending the C63. It does the whole thing so well, it really handles the weight fantastically, it's super fast, it's really dynamic, and then on the comfort side, it is undoubtedly very comfortable as well. So as you can tell, I've actually enjoyed driving this car, unlike the C63. A, because I'm less bothered that it's not a V8, but also it's done a stellar job of hiding its weight. Now look guys, don't get me wrong, all right? Just because I'm getting some sound out the back, and I think this is, you know, making a bit more sense than the C63, I'm not by any means saying that this is some kind of replacement for the insane V8 version that preceded this. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that this whole powertrain concept makes way more sense in this SUV than it did in that C63. A, we've got more emotion coming out the back, undoubtedly. But B, as an SUV, I can see us making much more use of this hybrid system. Yes, it's no V8 replacement. Yes, it probably should have a different name than 63S. But as a performance hybrid car, it's one of the few that I've driven that actually makes sense having added the weight. So while yes, this is doing its best McPlant imitation, you know, it's something I can swallow and be quite happy with as a meal, essentially. So guys, that's my first drive of the GLC 63S E-Performance. A much more convincing package, I think, than the C63 in this SUV with the anti-roll stabilization. Absolutely looks the part. If you decide to go for the 43, you're not going to miss out much in terms of styling or emotion, I reckon. So I'm excited to drive that. But if you want the 680 horsepower version, it does a really good job, and you've got a number of cool features from the EVs that you will actually use daily. If you enjoyed this episode of RBR, as always, please do like and subscribe. It's hugely appreciated, and I'll see you guys next time.